So, as we've already mentioned, I definitely do animals. And I've mostly worked in acrylics for the longest time. And, the animal is always paramount, but I've always had stuff in the background and other elements, etc. And, I've played with textures with my acrylics, and I have added stuff in the background with layers and glazes and stencils and so on. And I've done a lot of teaching, and especially there was a local shop for many, many years here. Of course, they've all gone. I'm sure they're the same thing in your area. Um, but then, my students wanted colored pencil, and for some reason, we have a lovely connection with the pencil. And I really noticed that the anxiety in the classroom went down when I taught colored pencils. So I thought, okay, well, it's something that I should explore. And, the first ones we did, you can see the papers weren't that great. It's because there's a lot of fading going on there. It's just like this little guy sitting in the middle of the paper kind of stuff. And I did notice a lot of colored pencil artists, that's what they do. They just put one little guy or thing or banana or pears or whatever in the middle of a piece of paper, and that was it. Like quite often the background was nothing. So I started to experiment with some different papers. And so these are scrapbook papers. So you can see it's the same little guy. And then, you go shopping and you find all this stuff and you pop them in there and you think, oh, that's lots of fun, tons of fun to do that. Here's another one where these are three of my little foster kitties. And, I put them on a piece of paper, and all this stuff was done. All this stuff was done on a piece of paper. But the problem with that, of course, as I was going along, is you can't teach, because when you go back to the store, you can't get 12 of these or, 20 or however many is in the class. Or you go back thinking, oh, yeah, I really like that piece of paper. But then, of course, they don't make it anymore. So that didn't work out consistently. So again, just trying to think of other things to use in the backgrounds to set the scenes. So I was playing with some little shiny, shimmery type of paints in the background. And then this was all the colored pencil. All that was colored pencil. And again, lots of fun, but it wasn't really what I was looking for exactly. Again, you're sort of at the mercy of manufacturers and what colors that they make. And, you go back again, like I say, and you can't get what you had before, which was very frustrating for me. So I stopped that. And I did spend some time doing sort of traditional colored pencil, where I colored that whole thing with colored pencil. Everything was colored, and it was very slow. It's not a fast medium. It does detail great, but it's not a fast medium. So I, keep working away, keep thinking about stuff. And then I always joke that, I went to go visit my daughter down in Toronto, and of course, she wasn't home from work, so there was an art store that was close by. And spend an hour or some in an art store. Of course, something's going to follow you home. And I found these pan pastels. So they're soft pastels. So the dry ones, not the oils. And there's 20 colors. And then each color, so this is the turquoise, this is the bright. It comes in a tint, a shade, and an extra dark. And every color has that. And they're just regular colors, and they make them all the time. And so, by the time I'd visited my daughter a couple of times, I had the whole set of, and all four values within that set. And so then it was just a matter of coming home, and every time you want to start painting or doing something, you had everything right then and there. And I didn't have to worry about going out and buying something and not finding it again. So that really worked out well for me. And, at first I started off with just putting a few little blotchies in there, just one or two colors, just to kind of fill in so it's not so plain. I did those. That was from a trip that I took with Kathy to South Africa. So, here's a couple of my Fosters again. So two colors, I believe, maybe three, just like a little blotchy kind of background to fill it in. Because you can see that if it was just plain, it just wouldn't come together the same way. So you see, just kind of working away there. This is my Cedric. I'm going to think three colors maybe in that one. So still kind of plain. And then, of course, you've got them all. You want to try use them all. So you pop that all in, you get that going. Lots of fun, like huge fun. Students love them too. I was surprised how they took to them. They're not cheap, but once you've got them, they last forever. So this was one of those things where that was a nice piece of Christmas fabric. And, do I want to color every single solitary thing? No. So I just popped in some colors, did some line work in the background and try to set that whole blank in. And then of course did my little creature. So those are just sort of blotchy type things, but again, things move on, and people start getting more things and trying different, going a little bit more details and trying to make different scenes. So this one was a background where there's a little bit more of the branches. This is one of the ones where I put in just an impression of the trees in the background, and then I get to do my pencils on this. I get to do my details. Here's another one where I've got the background, again, a suggestion of the trees and the setting that the deer is in. I haven't really gotten to like really super painting the background because it's still supposed to be, in my opinion anyways, secondary to my animal. But I still, I'd like to have the scene. This is part of my manly. So, I start off with chipmunks and kittens and cute things like that. And then I've decided that we needed to do some manly animals too. But that was a photo that I got from Alaska, I believe, Denali. And in the fall, that whole brush turns that beautiful color. And so I did the whole thing, kind of painted it in with pan pastels, and then put my moose on top. There's another one where the background was a lot of fun to do, like a really lot of fun to do. And then spend the time again on the actual animal. I got one more to show you, I think. Here we go. This one's a simple one, but still, it's got that whole, sky, because these guys are always standing on the side of the mountain. So I've got the pan pastels going. And then, well, start playing with a little bit of texture paste. I guess I do look for things to move the art along, especially if there's secondary elements. Yes, you could probably color all that in, get the texture of what he's standing on. but it's a lot more fun just to get some texture paste and then color on top, or more pan pastels too. That could work. This was another one where I'd use that clear gesso because it was more like a volcanic rock, and I have a little bit of texture on there too. And then I grate other pastel and different things like that. So I'm definitely not a purist as far as the colored pencil is concerned. It is a slow medium. But I've really embraced the layering aspect of it. So for instance, this is my niece's cat, and she wanted a portrait. So I started her up and I started coloring it away because that's what she picked. She wanted a color pencil, and it was not going well. And I chucked it in the garbage and I started it again. And then I thought, oh, I've already invested so many hours in that already. Out it came out of the garbage. And I thought, well, I'll put some more pastel on there. Like I wasn't getting the coloring and the softness that I was looking for. So I put some pastel on, I fixed it again, and then I went back with colored pencil, and I'm not sure if it landed in the garbage one more time, and I pulled it out again and thought, oh, just get this thing done. And I really quite like it. I think it might be one of my very favorites because I had to work so hard at it. And I did pastel, pencil, pastel, pencil, and then I think I did end up with pencil. And I sprayed it and I sent it to her. And the cat liked it. So at least I thought that was pretty good.
Lydia, how long does it usually take for you to complete something that size and that detailed?
Well, that one took me days and days, because I was struggling so hard with it. And it usually does take me a while to get it going. Like if it's I'm designing from a photo, especially something that is pretty detailed, like those are a lot of layers and pretty detailed, that would
Right.
be quite a while to do. And like I'm trying to think, because I know people always ask those kinds of things, and days. It would take me days. Now, second time around, not doesn't take me quite as long when I've got it sort of figured out. Right. So what I thought I would do is tell you a little bit about the paper, because if you're trying to do something, and you've got all these mediums, and you're trying to like layer it up and get the look that you're going for, you've got to have a paper that's of decent quality and thickness. A lot of people use that My Tints paper, and I don't like it at all. I need something a little sturdier and something with no texture. I want to do all the textures myself. So this Stonehenge has been good for me. I really enjoy that. And they've got white, obviously, and then they've got these tinted ones, like a bit of a yellow. They've got a sort of buff, peachy, maybe they all look like white by now. There's a pearl gray as well. And then there's a craft colored one. And this one's quite nice, especially for when I'm teaching classes, because the thing with colored pencil is your light colors, you kind of have to save them. They're like watercolor that way. So you have to save your whites, or you have to be able, they're special. Sometimes you can get them back and sometimes you just can't. And of course, then you've got your backgrounds going and all sorts of things. And I found with students that they take a white or a light colored pencil and they start to color and they put stuff on and they can't see it. So then they think, well, I guess I better do another layer. So they put another layer on, or they press harder. And they're building up all this light wax, and it's not going to show until you put something else beside it for contrast. And so by the time they figured that out, their paper is so saturated and the tooth is wrecked, and you really can't really go much further than that. So if they start off with this craft color, they put a light on, you can see a light. And if you put a dark on, you can see a dark. And so if you can see something, then you move on to another step and you add and you do other things to it. And that's part of how the pan pastels and stuff work too, is that you've got something on there and then you can work on top. So the paper, I think, is really important. You have to think about that. And then, it's a big part of it. You don't just sort of grab any piece of paper and then just decide. Not that you can't do colored pencil on a lot of stuff. You can do it on wood. Things change, they do different things, but you can put it on a fair number of surfaces. Other things I do, so I use Prismacolors. Lots of artists like a polychromo or a Faber-Castell or something. These ones are wax based, and they put down a lot of pigment. And I like things to go a little bit faster. I don't want to be there all the time, even though I am. Even though it's not like I'm impatient. It's just, yeah, you'd like to see something when you work at it. So these are some of my things that I use. I use this Gamsol solvent. And I put it in one of these little water brushes so that I can put it on my piece, and I'll show you how it works. And then I have a variety of sizes of these mini scrubbers so that I can move things around. To get whites back, I've found a whole bunch of different things. There's the Chenille Color Wax Pastel. This is another brand that I found that works pretty good. It doesn't lay down as much pigment, but it's a little bit of a harder lead, so you can press a little bit harder. Colorless blender, I use that now and again. Erasers, of course, you need to have ones that actually get in there and you can take away some stuff, like pull stuff back off, or maybe take your transfer lines and things like that off too. This is one of the recent things where you can actually scratch off, and that works great for other textures. And again, you've got the wax buildup. Once that happens, you can't really add more stuff. So you have to be careful about building up too much waxy buildup. So I thought what I would show you is how I've done the pastel already, because after you do the pastel, you have to go in, put a layer of workable fixative on. Otherwise, of course, it keeps lifting up and lifting up. And when you put that odorless mineral spirits on, if you don't have that fixed, it just goes out, creates a hard watermark that you will not be happy with. We decided we like this one better than that cute. We were going to do just a little cutie patootie thing for Valentine's, but Rosinia thought we should go maybe a little bit more serious. So I chose this one, we like this one a lot, but I chose this one because, again, I struggled a little bit with this in a few aspects. So I knew in the photo that it was just green. Okay, and green's difficult. So I put it on, I put some on and thought, okay, well, that was pretty boring. I sort of perked it up a little bit on this second one, but it can be a little bit boring if it's just green, 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 and green. And so I put some on, and then I did some of the work on the birds, and then came to the branch here, the log, and I thought, oh, I don't want to color all that, every single thing. So then I put more pastel on, and the pan pastels come with these little handles and little sleeves. And you can put some stuff in here, some lighter colors, and I put some tints of orange in and got some browns going, some raw umber. And then I picked it up here again with some orange and emptied my sponges in the background. And then I added some of the tints, and I find the tints are really great, actually, because somehow they give you a nice sort of like a smooth but deep color, as opposed to just like that sort of pale and not very exciting. So you can go back, like I said before, you can go back a bunch of different times. You want to get your little guys and your colored pencil in relatively solidly. And then you can kind of go back, and then you can color again, like I said, with that pet portrait that I did. Works out really well. And then another challenge that I had was to get the red here. And so I did a whole bunch of layers. And red wasn't really sort of doing what I wanted it to. And then I did find the Spectrafix Instagrit. So I got it going as far as I could with that waxy buildup, with that shine, and that's it. The paper's not going to take any more. That is not going to take anything. And so then I just painted the grit on, let it dry, and I went again with colored pencil, and I got the brighter look. At least it gave me another chance to get to get a few more layers and to get some brightness going there.
So, Lydia, is that Instagrit specifically to brighten the color,
No,
or to do
all it
what?
does is gives you more grit on more tooth on your
Texture?
all. It just like it's that's what it there, and we have to keep mixing it. And I got some chunks going on in there too. But that liquid has little tiny gritty bits, I guess.
Okay.
And so when you put it on, that gives you more tooth. And then you can go again with another layer or two. I mean, it doesn't go right back to the beginning, of course, but it's just another way of getting some more chance to get more layers and things like that on it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I've got some on here already. And so I will put this Gamsol on. Concentrate here a little bit on Mama. So this Gamsol, you can see what it's doing on the darker colors, maybe a bit more so than the light. Here's my pass. You have to keep your tips clean because you can see how I'm picking up. Okay, so you're actually liquefying and moving this around. So not that you're actually painting with it, as I do. You know what? You just do what needs to be done to get the look that you want, right? And that's just what needs to be done. All right, so then just some sometimes I just kind of give it a little rub with one of these loose rubbers, and that it's not quite as stiff as a fabric painting brush, but maybe just a little bit stiffer than an acrylic blender. All right, so I'm just kind of get that going like that. All right, so you can see that again, you pick up, so you got to keep that at least a little bit clean, especially if I'm going to go into this white. So you can rub, kind of get it to smooth and get a little bit more coverage going there. And I can do, see, look at that. It sort of intensifies. So with the first part, you know, I'm just kind of getting close. Just getting close. And then as you move through, you just keep nudging it to what you would like. So then I would take some orange, and I'm going to put a layer of orange on it. So I do a variety of strokes. So this one, for this head, it's pretty smooth. You don't see a lot of texture on it. Down here, you see a little bit more texture. So, you know, you have to change your strokes. So now it's not coloring like, you know, coloring in the coloring book where you just mindlessly shut your brain off and, you know, fill in the shape. You have to think about what you're doing. Right, making the direction, rolling your pencil so that it wears down evenly. Otherwise, you'll be constantly sharpening your pencil. All right, so there's a bit of a darkness here, so I'm not going to put the orange all the way. But, you know, I want this pretty bright, so I'm going to take this orange and go pretty much everywhere. There we go. Okay, so you see, you don't want to cover everything up that you did before. You need to let layers show through. And let's see, Scarlet Lake. The pencils are delicate, the lighter ones more so than the darker ones. So you do need to have some pencil technique, pencil sharpening technique. And there's lots of sharpeners out on the market nowadays too. And there's some pretty great ones actually. Okay, so now I'm adding another value. Just beginning some shadows. So I definitely want some shadows here at the front and a few at the back. You know, thinking about where the lights. But you don't want to have it like solid patches everywhere. So you do need to think about where you're putting it. All right, so here's definitely a shadowed area. So I can put a bit more here. Now, edges are important, very important. So you do want to take care of those right away. And, you know, if it's a fuzzy thing or if it's like a kitten with guard hairs or a lynx or something like that, you want your pencil sharp and you want to have some lines coming over the edge. Things are, you know, some things are fuzzy, some things are not as fuzzy stuff. And we'll get another Another layer, another value. Okay, so again, you're thinking about what you're trying to do. Are you, like, sometimes you're trying to get the tooth of the paper covered a little bit more, so you have to target things. You want to do more. I think I was going to put a little bit at the side here. And I could blend it again. So the only thing that you have to be careful with, of course, is over blending, which I find we love to do. So if you're going to blend with one of these, you would just back and forth, lift it up, back and forth, lift it up. And maybe you don't want to blend it. Not always doing exactly the same thing all the time. But when you blend, you take some of the luster out of the color. These and just a little back and forth, lift up your brush, little back and forth, lift up your brush. Just kind of, and to put another layer of the permanent red, which was the first color that I had on there before we even started. So you can just put another layer. Now with that OMS, it's a little slick, I guess. I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. I like it. I enjoy it. There's lots of colored pencil artists that don't want to use any solvents, but it does definitely speed things up. Okay, so I'm back to the orange. Okay, turning the brush, always turning. I keep calling it a brush because that's, to me, I'm kind of painting. So when the first time that I did it, that's where you don't really know where you're going with stuff and you're just finding your way. And that's where, of course, you can get into some trouble, which pretty much that's part of art, I think. Do stuff, it doesn't work, you do something else, doesn't work. By then time, you've got a whole whack of stuff happening and you can't take it off. Although that poor, I guess the thing is that you're trying to save your whites all the time. They're always delicate and all that kind of stuff. But when you get pushed into a corner and it's in the garbage, that's when you start to really say, okay, what else can I do to save this? So I can just kind of go like that. And then I would keep going to other parts and then come back. So I'm going to end up coming back with some indigo up there, but I didn't do that. I'll show you what I mean here. See how it's quite dark right there? I didn't do that right away. I did that in conjunction with the back there. All right. So we can continue on here. Oops. So this is the pencil sharpener that I've got here. And I got this one just recently because I had the same brand, but when the pencils got short, I couldn't get it down into the pencil sharpener. So this one actually sucks the pencil down in and then spits it out when it's done, which is great. Just put a little, just another layer onto the eye. I've already put a sparkle in. And sometimes you lose stuff and you have to put it, put it back in. Okay. So I'm going to do a few more things here. And just get some layers going. Anybody has any questions? Okay. So usually I'm following my photo, and adding different colors as we go along. Well, at the very beginning, you always make things a little bit wider than you think. Because if you see the photo and it's just that big, if you just put it in that big, then it turns out kind of patchy, and you need to put it on quite wide, and then as you move along, you cover less and less.
I have a question. I am curious. Could we have cousins in Toronto? Which art store do you go to in Toronto?
Oh, well, that one was Curry's, and I think they closed. I think
Oh no.
bricks and mortar anymore.
Yeah.
There's Above Ground, and I'm not sure Wartsman's is there.
Okay.
Studio 6, I think, is in there too. I mean, there's Desserts, but they don't have a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Lydia, this is Sue. I'm a watercolor artist, so this is like totally new for me.
Okay.
So I'm a little confused. I'm obviously you did the background first in pan, pastel, everything first. I would have thought you might have done the more of the colored pencil with this, the bird first, and then put the background around it. But that's not how you do it, huh?
Well, I like the fact that this is the setting. And if you're in this setting of green, you're going to have that adjust your colors.
Oh.
Right? I mean, if you're sitting in a green patch, you're going to have these tints of green and things like that. You're in that environment. Because of the white, I understand where you're coming from in the fact that I said that you want to save your whites.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to judge your whites just on a white piece of paper. And so I find that when I can do sometimes I make a mask and I set things down, and then I try to target a little bit. But I think in general now what I like to do is put some on, do my stuff, and then come back and tuck in.
Okay, thank you.
For instance, this one, I did sort of put a mask in there so that I didn't come through the ears and I didn't create harsh edges. I really hate harsh lines. So, and you don't want to have a big harsh edge going through something as pale as this. So I had some green in, I did this little guy, I wanted this one coming forward, I wanted that going back. So then I put in more, and I could really target in here and in here and there. And I can stick that right in like that. And then I can come back and do some more here. So it's definitely, it's not completely like watercolor. I mean, look, I got the white back. It's on brown paper, and it had some green in there too, or a little bit, and then I could still get that back. So I found other ways to get everything. And I don't know, sometimes if you just do everything after, like when I do it, an acrylic painting or a soft pastel or something, I try to bring everything up at the same time rather than just doing him and then a background, and then I probably have to go back to him again, and that kind of stuff. I don't know. Did that help at all?
A little bit. I'll
A
give
little
you a
bit.
lot. Thank you.
I mean, I know, like when I do watercolors, I have a hard time, and I always have to use that, like that PH Martin thing. I always have to go back and stick a white in there somewhere. I can't just do the,
You can't leave the white, right?
no, I can't do that. It's too crisp. I don't like a crisp edge.
No.
Isn't that terrible? All right, so let's see. I mean, maybe. I mean, I think you just take your medium and you make it work for you. There may be, yes, rights and wrongs, I suppose, but I think for me, I just do what I need to do to get the look that I like. And I do like a soft look, which is why I do the gamsol. I really do. All right, so now I'm just, coming in. It's not a fancy bird in that there's a whole bunch of detail and stuff. They're pretty basic. And so right now I'm looking to see some texture of the feathering. Okay, so I can change things. I can change it, and you have a fair bit of flexibility to do it. You just have to be brave and make some decisions. Okay, just kind of color that up. And so I'm just going to put some black and work my way to the back. What do I want to do up here? I think I want to put a bit of black up here too. Okay, so that's really straight. Curve it down just a little bit. So you have to like detail, I think. And we're very, very comfortable with the pencils, so you can do that. You can do lots of fabulous details. So I was saying about edges. So sometimes when I get an edge like that, and maybe the Prismacolors are a little bit soft, you might change to a harder pencil, like one of those Pablo Caran d'Ache ones. It depends. If you can keep your pencil sharp, then and you can keep rotating, you can do a lot actually with this. Okay, so you're going to use your negative shapes too. Come from behind and shape. I find a lot of my students, their things are too straight and too rigid. And I always try to tell them to, make some interesting shapes. Think about what you're doing and build what you want. Okay. I could put another little bit of brown on there too. You just keep switching and getting the value that you need. So usually if you're doing a pet portrait, it really does make a difference. It's a huge difference to make sure that you get everything that needs to be done for that exact animal. If you're just doing a random cat or a random bird or something like that, then a lot of the times you can get close and you're still, you're still good. All right, so let's see. Non-photo blue.
Lydia, do you do many commission pieces, like for people with their pets?
I used to. I don't really like it anymore. I just find it very difficult. There's a lot of stress involved in trying to make that. And then you always have to, I always find that you have to leave one thing that they could suggest because they always have to see something. So you think, maybe I won't do this particular part. And then they'll say, oh, could you just make that a little bit blacker? And you say, well, yes, I can. I would love to make it blacker. But no. I thought that that's what I wanted to do, but I don't. And the other thing was too that I was finding is that people would give me a picture of their dog and say, but I want him to be younger. Like, could you take 5 years off him or something?
Oh
like
my goodness.
And say, well, could you get me another picture then? Well, no, he's dead, so I can't. You can take another picture. Oh. Or they'd give you a really bad photo, and
No, that could be stressful.
it was too stressful for me. So I just do what I want now, and I do a lot of teaching on Zoom and that sort of thing, and that makes me happy. Okay, so I'm just adding some tints there, some blue, and I did that sunburst yellow ahead of time. And then we'll just add a bit more white. Okay. So on my website, like if you're interested in doing some colored pencil on your own, I've got some basics, but there's one little video that I made. They're free. You could just go in. They're just informational videos, and it's sort of texturizing, especially with this light, and because sometimes putting white back on is quite difficult, and you have to think about all the layers you've got on there. You have to keep your pencil sharp. You have to dig down into the paper. It's a little bit of a trick to it, and you need to kind of practice. I'm just texturizing fur and feathers. Okay, so you just kind of I'm just shoving it in. If you get to the point where you really, 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 really want something and it's just not taking, that's when you start, you pull off a few things and you can go again. I'm not in that particular spot myself, but that's something you can do, like maybe some whiskers or something like that, and you'd like to. Okay, so I would like it quite a bit whiter here. I'm pressing as hard as I possibly can. Well, it's working pretty good. If at the end, and I look at my whole piece and I say, no, I really, really want it, brighter, then you can do two things. You can darken around it, or you can use this little handy dandy secret weapon, and it comes out a little bit brighter. Hard for you to see that, but that's the idea. So I'm just going to rub this here. And I'll rub into the white. Just to kind of dirty it up a bit, and then I can go again. And same sort of thing here, because if you try to keep things super separate, that's what it looks like. It looks like a quilt. And you don't, like, I'm sort of going with for a certain amount of realism anyways.
You mentioned about colored pencil on wood. Have you done many of those? And what are the disadvantages of doing
I
it?
haven't done a ton. There is some laminate that comes that like it's just a paper thickness, and that works out pretty good. I don't know if I can put my hands on my sample just quite yet. And I used my Gamsol and everything, and that worked out. And I taught this weekend a links, and there's always one lady that always likes to bring a piece of wood and do it on like my manly animals. And she was having trouble because sometimes the wood depends on what kind of wood and what kind of slickness it is. Is it really wood? Is it a composite? What have they treated it with? All that kind of stuff. And sometimes it doesn't take the pencil very well. And so she was not able to use that. She had to use paper that time. But she's actually done it on those. Have you seen those wood rounds where they've got bark around the outside?
Yes.
Yeah, wood slices, I think is what they call them. So she's worked on that before. And it's rougher. It's definitely rougher. It's not gonna, you're not gonna get the same look as what you're gonna get on paper, but it certainly does, it's worth kind of working away at experimenting with some paper or with some surfaces, I mean. Okay, so you just kind of
Do you find that with doing it on a wood surface, you have to use more layers with the colored pencil than you would with paper?
I guess you're going for a rougher look anyway, so you kind of stop. You're not looking for this exact look anyways.
Right.
So you've got the grain of the wood, so you can't really keep going and going and going. Like you don't want it to. I guess the danger there is if you want this look, then put it on paper.
Okay.
And so if you put it on something else, you're going to get something else, and that's just the way it is, and it's okay. It's just that you have to sort of manage your expectations and accept what the surface is going to give you. All right, so now I'm putting that indigo on. And I'll come down here. I guess the other thing too, what I find with realism is that sometimes people, you do that whole thing where, oh, the grass is green, so I'll just take my green pencils and that's it. So, oh, this is black, so I'll just use, a brown and a black and get that. But you got to think about some other things that are going to make the depth a little bit better. So see, I'm putting this on again, but every layer you do, you have to be just that little bit more careful. Not do as much. Think about what you're doing. You've got stuff on there already. You're building on that. You're not starting from scratch again. So people who don't use the Gamsol would just keep layering and layering and layering and layering, and they would, get a beautiful look. Right, so just a little bit of that in the forehead there. Oh, so I would like to find that edge a little bit better. So I'm going to put white on first. Oh, I didn't show you all the samples with, I've worked on black paper too, actually. And that's kind of cool. I think so. I'll just put a little bit of that.
Do you find that
Yep,
do
go
you
ahead.
find that the white is it always required to use white in all your pictures
I would think I'd use a fair
to
bit
make
of white.
it pop? Pardon?
Yep, I definitely use white. Almost, well, now I shouldn't say that, should I? I think if I've got other things. It depends on the animal, but lots of times if you put the white on and then color it a different color after that, it works out pretty good. Okay, but you see, look at, I can put the white and I can change these little shapes. You have to keep cleaning your tip though, because you pick up, you've softened or liquefied or did something. There we go. And we don't just use the white. I mean, you've got a whole bunch of light, what is it, 150 colors, I think is what they've got in the full box. So, you can do a bit of light peach. Like what I was saying here, don't just always take black, white, brown, green. Try to do something a little bit different. Okay, so, I would need to fine tune shapes as I would like there. So I've got some blue here and then I'll highlight. Okay, so I'm probably not going to get pure white here. If I decided that I wanted that and I was going over and over and over and I thought there that I would scratch. Or I would take the white in the Prismacolor line is very soft. And if you start to press too hard, it crumbles very easily. So if you wanted this brighter, you would just maybe scratch a little something off. There we go. And you just put that on there. So I want to have, so there's always two ways of doing things. I could beat it to death, trying to get the white to show, keep going with the white, keep going with the white, or you can come back with a negative shape and work it back this way, and then you could go back again and you could work it back. You always have to remember that there's two ways of doing it. I could bring this sunburst yellow and I could go on this alone too. So if you decided that you want it brighter and brighter and brighter and it's not doing that, that's when you could put that Spectra fix on it. But I mean, that's just something brand new that I've found recently, which is pretty great. It's always nice when you find a new product that's going to help you out. So here, if I decide that I want my texture to show a little bit better, I've got a light color, not light, but just a little bit of a light color. And I could put a bit more texture in there if it's too bright. I would just put a little bit of that brown backward. So like, if you are going to go back with your pan pastels, you see how I've got that watermark there? Well, it's sort of seeped out. That has to dry. It's not going to stay there because I fixed that background and set it. So this has to come out, and we have found over the years that it has to dry on its own. Even well, I mean, you can always, if you're a gambler, you can always try all sorts of things, but I've just had in workshop situations where we thought we could dry it. It seems like it's dry, and then we've gone back with pan pastels, and then you've got this little, edge that's grabs the pastel in a different way, and then you've got this edge, and you've got to really work hard at trying to get rid of that then. So when I did this and decided to go back, I just did it like the next day. And this is okay. I mean, if you had a watermark in there, maybe you could get it to work to your own benefit.
You have 5 minutes. I'm sorry.
Okay. 5 more minutes? All right. I'm just going to show you a couple more surfaces. So this is the black Stonehenge paper. And it's cool to work on. Very cool to work on. And there's another one on black. And if you get that Sorrel paper to put you put your pattern on, you can press that right off, and then your black paper is showing right away. And there's suede board. So that's a fuzzy, like mat board, I guess. And so you can work on that as well. All sorts of things. Colored pencil is pretty, it seems like a super delicate medium. But you can do all sorts of stuff actually. It works quite well. Like if you get a piece of slick paper, like something like that, and it's too slick, you could spray that with a workable fixative and again get some tooth on it, and then you can go again with that.
Lydia, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something about fixing the background, and when you're working on the bird, you're leaning into the pan pastels of the background. How are you not smearing it? You said something about fixing it.
Yes, so there's Krylon and Golden, and those brands have a workable fixative. So you take it outside, like you do your stuff, you take it outside, you spray it so that it doesn't, just enough so that if you rub with a Kleenex or your hand, it doesn't come up on your hand.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why on black paper, I don't use pan pastels, because when you spray on any soft pastel, it changes stuff. And your darks get darker and your lights sort of disappear. And so you put your pan pastels on here and you spray it, and they just kind of disappear. So it doesn't really work that well on black paper.
Mm.
At
I
the
have a
very,
question for you, and I know about how do you frame those pieces?
Yeah,
Far
good
as do
question.
you put those behind glass or do you not put it behind
no,
glass?
I
Because
don't
I've
put
heard
them
a
on.
little both. Hmm.
Yeah, no, I don't. You can get quite creative actually. And you could,
Hmm.
so for instance, these little critter squares that I do, I spray them and then I glue them on these wood blocks. And then I actually have a brush on varnish. And this is a very matte, an ultra matte varnish that goes on that. And I've glued them on all sorts of wood, mostly wood, I guess, because you know you're trying to get it so that it will be displayed. I don't think I have really put anything under glass, to be perfectly honest. But you can. I mean, you could put a mat and glass and all that kind of stuff. But if you put brush on varnish, that's pretty. It's pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't put it in the kitchen beside the bacon grease, you know, with spattering all over the place. And I wouldn't put it on a tray or something you're going to
Hmm.
use. But certainly you can. That's all I do with those. And I have tons of them actually. It depends on
Okay.
what you're looking for. So, for instance, this little thing here is just for like a quick little social that I'm going to go to. So that's a frame. I've sprayed that, and it came with a piece of plastic, but I mean, of course, there's too much glare and everything. So I've just put my varnish on there, and then I've treated this frame with sand and some glue and some little bits and stuff. And so now I've got a really cool presentation, actually. So there's tons of stuff. Like it doesn't have to be precious, I guess, in quite the same way that you think things should be. Um, yeah. So that's probably all I
Right.
have to
I was
say.
just wondering, do you find that the oil pastel would be more sensitive under glass, like far as smudging?
So my soft pastels that I do with sticks have to be under glass. These don't because it's a very thin coating or a layer, and I've fixed it with that workable fixative. At the end, you can give it another spray with workable fixative or another spray varnish if you want, just to kind of set it. Like I said, you just read the label and it'll say for paper products. And you can, like you say, you can spray that. And if you want it to go under glass, you don't even have to spray it or anything. You can just pop it in there. And
Okay, Lydia, I have another question.
hmm,
You mentioned something about masking, and I know in watercolor, there is a liquid frisket or mask that you can preserve your whites.
yeah,
So
I
what is,
don't mean that. I don't mean that specifically. I just mean, so for instance, for Bun Bun, I would just do my drawing on a piece of paper and I would cut it out. And then I would put one piece of tape in the back and I would stick it where I wanted it. So that I could lift up and get some pastel in. Because if you make that crisp edge, then you're fighting that crisp edge
Mhm.
throughout your whole painting. You're constantly fighting that. And you want a fuzzy edge for an animal. So that's what I mean by a mask. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I didn't have any concept of what you meant, but that makes total sense.
Yeah. Can't remember. I've just been chucking all my things off to the left and right here, so I can't find my bunny again. But yeah. So, for instance, I did a snowy owl, and I did an Arctic sky, side to side. And of course, you know, you don't want a great big swath of blue and a swath of yellow and a swath of pink through your snowy owl that's going to be white. So I would put the owl where it needed to be. But I had to lift it up all the time and kind of put at least a little something under, and I could work it around it like that. And yeah, that worked out better for that. If you've got something specific that you really need to target.
And it's amazing how you get those individual hairs.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
So one of the,
That's
I was saying
amazing.
that one of the
Yeah, we're not
videos on
taking
there
messages.
kind of
Okay.
shows you how to, well, it tells you, I mean, you have to practice it. You can't, like, you to change your touch depending on what you want your pencil to do, right? You can't just tickle along the top. Sometimes you have to dig down in and get some of those little layers going. Not a purist, color pencil purist. I definitely grab from all sorts of places that I, think that I need to do. And yeah, it's all about the story and the mood and what it is that you want to portray. So you just have to do what needs to be done to get that, right? Yeah. To my artwork and say, gosh, that looks just like a photo. I don't want that. And I don't want them to say the first thing out of their mouth to say, oh my God, how many hours did that take you? Like, I would hope that they would connect with the animal a little bit before that.
Well, thank you again.